Welcome back to another episode of the Outdoor Adventures podcast here on Brownfield. I'm Brent Barnett. This week's show is brought to you by Beck's Hybrids. At Beck's, we are and will remain farmers at heart. Well, we're talking deer hunting this week and tracking for white-tailed deer, specifically dog tracking. Joining us now is Iowa hunter Chris Moffett, a friend of mine here in the area where I'm located. Chris, how are you doing today, man?
Doing good, Brent. How you doing, Bob?
Doing good. Appreciate you coming on. I know we had you on last year here on the show talking about this subject with dog tracking, but never a bad time, Chris, to have you kind of introduce yourself to the listeners a little bit. Tell us about some of your background and how you grew up in hunting.
Absolutely. So Chris Moffett, I have Triple M hounds and deer tracking out of the Lighton area. Been bow hunting probably 30 some years now. Started getting into the dog business after I had lost a couple deer myself, and been doing it for the public now. This will be my fourth season doing it for the public. Man, it's been busy the last week and a half or so, and things have kind of slowed down a little bit now, but we're still getting them calls.
Yeah, I'm sure things really pick up late October, early November, obviously with the rut. How do you find time for yourself to hunt during this busy time?
I wish I did find time for myself right now. Um, Man, I tell you, the last couple of years we've been staying so busy this time of year that I don't even get out to the woods myself anymore. It's usually late season before I can get out and do any hunting.
What's the season been like for you up to this point? Both if you've been able to get out into, a stand yourself or the tracking side of things. Can you kind of give us an update on how things have been going?
Sure. I tell you, I've been out, I think, 3 times myself now. I've seen a lot of really good deer when I have been out, but as far as the actual getting out, that's all I've done this year. Uh, Tracking wise, we've been going nonstop for the last couple of weeks now. It was a little slow early on in the season. We weren't getting a lot of calls, and nobody really was. I think the weather played a big part of that. It was pretty hot and dry all the way up until just the last 2 or 3 weeks here, and of course now the rut's kicking off really hard, and everybody's staying pretty busy. So no time to do much of anything else.
Well, Chris, just for the listeners' sake here, you and I met because I gave you a call one day needing help with a track on a buck I had shot on some public land. We didn't find the buck that day. I'm pretty sure he's still alive. It was a pretty poor shot, which, happens to everybody. You hate when it happens, but I couldn't thank you enough for coming out and helping. And I was just so impressed with how good your dog was working and was right on the trail from the get-go. How did you even learn about training a dog for dog tracking? Because I can't imagine the work that goes into that.
Yeah, I tell you, when I first got started with it was several years ago with my first bloodhound, and I was honestly I didn't know much about the tracking world. I just started taking the dog out on deer that I had shot. Uh, was blessed to have a dog that just kind of took to it naturally. And of course, now that I've been doing it for the public the last few years, I spend it's a year round thing, training and tracking and working the dogs. Um, I've now become a judge for the American Blood Trackers Association, so I can certify dog teams as well. Uh, it's it's nonstop, and it takes up all my free time. That's for sure.
Has this always been around and a thing? Because I feel like I didn't really start seeing it being talked about until maybe within the last 5 or 6 years. Has I wasn't sure what that was like. If there's a long history of dog tracking, or if you had any idea on that.
It's been around a long time. Of course, until it became actually legal and on paper, it was one of those things where you could get a hold of your local DNR officer and ask permission. And there wasn't a lot of guys that would tell you no. The DNR, they want you to be able to recover that deer just the same as the hunter does. So it cut down on the waste and whatnot. But yeah, I tell you, since it become legal here in Iowa now, it's everywhere.
So whenever you get called out to a track, Chris, I guess what would you say to hunters whenever you arrive? What are the types of things they should do, and do you have any tips or advice that you pass along?
Absolutely. So it really all kind of starts with the interview. As soon as I get a call or a text message, hey, I shot a deer. Can you help me out? I'm going to ask a lot of questions, and I'm going to ask to see pictures of the blood or the arrow. And it helps just kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together and kind of see maybe where they hit, which in turn, that makes me decide on wait times, how long we need to wait before we actually go put the dog on it to give the animal time to expire. Um, I know a lot of people are real adamant about wanting to get out and get after their deer. And one of the biggest things that we as trackers preach is the wait times. We've got to give it time to expire, especially this time of year with the rut. Everything's all amped up. They're living a lot longer on shots that early or late season would have them dead within just a few hours. But we're seeing these deer. Uh, our tracking group, we're calling them zombie deer right now because they're living so long on some of these shots that they should be kill shots quick. Uh, so it's a whole process. We ask that if you do go in and start tracking your deer and there's a decent blood trail, the blood starts thinning out and you just don't know what direction it went, try to back out the exact same path that you came in on. Don't go grid searching. Grid searching is one of the toughest things for a dog to try and work through. Everywhere the hunter has stepped on that track on the way in looking for their deer, they're going to carry that scent that the dogs are following all over the woods, everywhere they walk. So the more you can do to help us out is only going to help you out in the long run.
Have you had any tracks where the deer went for a long ways, but when you got up, you were super surprised because actually the shot wasn't necessarily a marginal or bad shot? The reason I ask is because we've had Shane Simpson on the show. He's a hunter from Minnesota, does a lot of dog tracking with the Tracker app. And I was looking on his YouTube channel one day, and he had this track on there. They tracked this buck, I want to say close to a mile. And when they got up, and they, field dressed the deer, both lungs had been hit by the broadhead. And he was just so surprised that a buck would make it that far with that type of hit. Have you seen anything similar to like that?
Oh, absolutely. I tell you, it wasn't just maybe a week or so ago. One of our fellow tracking teams here in Iowa, they tracked a deer little over a mile, and the bottom half of the heart had the broadhead go right through it. So that deer took off on a dead sprint and made it a little over a mile before it expired, and they found it. And once they started gutting it, they had seen that the heart had been cut through on the bottom side. I
It's
mean,
just
that's
amazing the strength these animals have.
oh, it's crazy. They got all this testosterone and everything pumping through them right now, and they're just like I say, we're calling them zombie deer amongst our tracking group.
And the thing is, I mean, you know better than anybody, Chris. Hunters, they want to make those ethical shots for a quick expiration. And when you tuck one in behind the shoulder like that, in your case with that story, clipping the heart, that's what you're aiming for. And then just to have one go that far, that's crazy.
It is, and what I find crazy with it all too is we're seeing excellent shots being put on deer, yet they're just not leaving the blood trails, and it's something that I don't fully understand myself, and I don't know as if anyone ever will, fully, but uh, we're seeing solid liver shots, liver lung shots that they may only get a 50 or 60-yard blood trail from the start, and then it just nothing. A lot of it has to do, I'm sure, with the body cavity filling up with blood as it's bleeding inside. But it's crazy to think about the fact that the hunters aren't getting much of a trail to follow, but they're actually putting excellent shots on these deer.
Yeah, I can attest to that. My buck I killed in 2021, right, a few minutes before last legal shooting light, shot this buck at 25 yards. I felt confident with the shot. We went back in a couple hours later just to play it safe a little bit. We didn't find a speck of blood until I think it was 40 or 45 yards on the track. And he had went down just another 15 yards after that. We just stumbled right on top of him. So, he did a death run, Chris, right? He didn't make it very far.
Oh,
But
yeah.
just the fact that we didn't get a drop of blood until about 40 or 45 yards just kind of makes you think how how much you really have to pay attention to detail when you're out there.
Oh, absolutely. And that's it's part of the whole interview process too. We as trackers, if after speaking to you and you telling us about what kind of sign and stuff you're seeing, if we think that your deer is going to be dead, they're real close, and you don't need us, we're going to tell you. We're not trying to waste our time and your money or anything like that. If your deer's laying there close and we think it's going to be an easy find for you, we're going to tell you, and we're going to help walk you through it and get you to your deer without needing a dog.
How beneficial is footage? You ever come across somebody that's sought out your services and they had like like an action camera or a GoPro on their, strapped to their forehead and had some film of the shot?
Oh, absolutely. So beneficial. Again, once we see the video, we can and see the deer's reactions and everything that's going on right there. I mean, we can give you the best wait times and help you out the best we can right there.
As we're kind of moving into the late part of this interview here, I do want to ask about rain type conditions because I feel like there's a lot of unknown out there about whether hunters can call a dog tracker and have a successful track if it's raining. And the reason I ask here, Chris, the last week or so where we're at in kind of south central Iowa, we've had quite a bit of rain here this fall, the last week and a half or so. A couple days where we had about over 2 inches of rain. So, how does that impact a track, or is it beneficial?
I tell you, Brent, right now we've got probably some of the best tracking conditions this time of year than I've seen in the last 4 years of being here in Iowa and doing this. Having the moisture on the ground, it only helps. A lot of people get discouraged with the rain coming in, and they shoot a deer, and the rain washes the blood away. They get all nervous and think they need to go in there and run around. I tell you, it only helps a dog. It takes a lot of rain in a very short period of time to wash that scent away. That moisture, it only holds the scent to the ground, and it makes it just that much easier for the dogs.
Can it be different if the rain has already, like, let's just say the rain was like a torrential downpour coming down at the time of the shot? Would that be a little different, or is it about the same thing with the moisture?
So when I say, we talk torrential or real heavy rains, you're looking at it's going to take 3 to 4 inches of rain within an hour or two, or 5 to 6 inches of rain overnight, on top of a track to really degrade that track to where it's going to make it difficult for the dog. So if it's pouring down rain at the time of your shot and it slows up and it's not bad overnight or throughout the rest of the day, it's not going to affect the dogs at all.
If you don't mind me asking, Chris, for people that haven't been able to use a dog tracker yet or haven't, had that experience, is there a fee, or do you have like a payment structure for those types of services? Or I didn't know what that looked like. Is it strictly
Sure.
on like tips, or could you help us out there?
Absolutely. So what we kind of put out to our group in here in Iowa, the newer trackers as they first get started and running around here, kind of tip based, just ask for tips, get the experience, get you some good recoveries in. And after, a season or so of, showing that your dog is proven and getting those recoveries, absolutely, it's not it's not cheap to raise and train a dog and drive around and try to find everybody's deer for them. With a good tracking dog, if you're going to buy a good tracking dog that's already been started, you're looking at an easy $5,000 on a started dog. Add on top of that all the vet bills, the food, the time you spend training all year round. It adds up quick, and it isn't cheap by any means. I know it discourages a lot of hunters, but then we get to looking at, say, the drone guys in states around us. They're charging a lot more than what we are as dog trackers to come in and find the deer. Most of the guys that I track with, it's all kind of mileage based. If you're within an hour, it's not too bad. Usually going to be $250 or less, depending on how close you are within an hour. And then it kind of goes up from there. You know, we're taking a lot of time away from our friends and families and our hunting experiences too. So, you know, we kind of need to be compensated for that. I'm not going to say that there aren't, you know, some people that are out there charging a lot of money that probably shouldn't be charging anything at all. That's why we have our vetted tracking teams through the Iowa Blood Trackers on Facebook. Every team that, you know, gets put on the map is vetted, of course, for proven recoveries, or their pin is color coordinated for kind of their experience, whether they're a new team or they're, you know, a team that's been certified one way or another, or the number of recoveries that they have. And it all shows on our map there.
Yeah. Thanks for pointing all that out. Really good reasons there as well. And I think, you know, like you said, with the time you spend away from family for these tracks and the effort that goes into it, I mean, any ethical, decent hunter is going to offer, you know, tips or compensation. At least I would hope that they would have that decency, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, like early season, I was still just tracking for tips early season, just to kind of get the dogs back in the groove and get ready to go. And I tell you, Brent, I have yet to come across a hunter that wasn't, you know, very gracious with helping me out after that.
Yeah, that's great to hear, man. Well, I wish you the best the rest of this season. Hope you guys stay safe. And if you do get to go out, Chris, good luck to you. Hope you get a nice buck this year.
Awesome. Well, I sure do appreciate it, Brent.
Yep. Thank you, man. That's Chris Moffett from here in Iowa on the Outdoor Adventures podcast. A reminder that this week's show has been brought to you by Beck's Hybrids. At Beck's, we are and will remain farmers at heart. That's going to wrap it up for this week's program. We always appreciate you tuning in here on the Brownfield Ag News YouTube channel, as well as the Agra America app. I'm Brent Barnett on Brownfield. Have a great weekend.